Okay, so let's jump into this 20-minute transformation. For those of you who are new, I'm Grant Herbert, and I love to get together with you for a very short, sharp piece of your day to help you to make one shift that's going to do big impact in your career. And what we're talking about today is going from reaction to response. So a shift is going from something that's not working to something that does. And it's all about being able to control your thoughts, control your behavior, so that you actually get the results that you want. Now, our technical abilities are not the things that normally get us in trouble. It's these things. It's the inability to be able to navigate these things called emotions. And sometimes we can go totally off script and crazy. And other times we can push it down, and that has a very similar effect. So I want to help you to be able to make that shift. Now, this is all about your emotional intelligence, and I really want to help you to develop that. And the first thing, as we've talked about, is we need to make sure that we realize that these are crucial skills. They're not warm and fuzzies. They're not soft skills. They're not things that are nice to have. These are the things that will help you to get the results. All right. So if you're following in, you'll have the workbook. If not, you can grab it in a link below if you're watching this in the recording. And this area that we're working on today, if I just move out of the way over there, is in the area of intelligence. And it's shifting from a singular intelligence to multiple. You don't just have your cognitive intelligence, your technical abilities. You have emotional intelligence, you have social intelligence, you have creative intelligence, there's your leadership intelligence. There's so much more that we can work on. And this area is particularly important for us to work on. And if we look at what quadrant we're working in here, and by the way, if you're hearing me say that and you go, what do you mean? What are these quadrant things? Go back to the last one. You may have missed that, where we unpacked emotional intelligence and what it is. So it's the 4-quadrant model that I've developed to make things more relevant to today. And I've simplified the framework. So this area is control. All right. So this is, you've got that clarity, you've got the awareness, but now what is it that you need to do to control your thinking, your behavior? So if I just catch you up so that it's got the right context for you. So above the line here, or at the top, this is all about personal agency. And down here is all about shared agency. And the responsibility is not just you, it's with others as well. Over here, we have awareness. So both these quadrants are about awareness, and these over on this side are all about management. Now, remember, we don't manage the emotion. Now, that fits into the clarity area here. We manage the thoughts, we manage the response to the emotion. And that gives us, when we look at this whole model, we've got emotional intelligence, which is clarity and control, and then we have social intelligence. I just wanted to recap that so that it makes sense where we are working today. All right. So there are 6 competencies in this particular area, and I want to make sure that you understand what they are, and then we're going to go deeper on that one. So the first one is behavioral control. And we're going to go deeper on that. It's about being able to, as it says, control your behavior when you are emotionally stimulated. The next one is self advocacy. This is the ability to speak up for yourself with humility, but also with confidence. The next one is personal integrity. This is doing what you say you're going to do. This is doing the right thing even when someone's not looking, right? Another really important one for today is your adaptive capacity. This is your ability to zig and zag and move with the fast pace of change. We then have your intentional action. Now, this is doing things on purpose. This is making sure that every step you take fits into a plan rather than just the seat of the pants. Intentional. You don't have to spell to get this right. And then we have sustainable performance. And this is different to high performance. And I'm going to make sure that we work on that in more of our 20-minute transformations as we go through. But just to set the context here, this is where we're working today in the competency of behavioral control. And indeed, this one is the foundation for you to be able to work through all the others. All right, so I want to help you to understand what goes on between the initial stimulant and the reaction or response. So to be able to actually go from reaction to response, you need to understand what's going on. All right, so let's draw a little bit of a timeline here. So the first thing is something triggers you. There's a physiological cue that lets you know that trigger's been pushed, has been pulled. And for me, for example, it's traffic. If I'm running late for something and I don't want to be late because if I get there late, you'll think what you think about me, all those things that used to go through my head. So if I get stuck in traffic, I start telling myself things. All right. And as I said, the next thing that happens is there's some sort of a sensation goes on. So you physiologically know that trigger has been pushed. So if I'm in traffic, I can feel my hands tensing up on the steering wheel. I can feel the tension in the back of my neck. The next thing that happens is we put a meaning on that sensation. So as I just said in my dialogue, for me, I made it mean, I'm going to be late, right? So that then made me think about what could happen if I'm late. I could be coming to see you at your firm, and you could be considering engaging me for your partner's retreat. But if I'm late, you're going to think this about me. So that means that there's a lot of psychological dialogue, inner dialogue going on that then creates the behavior and I react. So then there's a reaction. Now that reaction then determines whether or not you're going to get the result you want, get the behavior that's healthy. And it's also then going to leave you with a feeling. Now that feeling is normally not a very good feeling, right? So if I keep going with my analogy, so I make it mean I'm going to be late and I make it mean that you're not going to like me, you're not going to give me the job or whatever it is, I then react by honking the horn or singing out to someone when they don't go through the lights as soon as they change. Haven't we got a color you like? They can't hear me, but I vent that, whatever it was, right? I don't drive as much now, but I'm being truthful and honest here. You place your story. What do you do when you're triggered? What is it that happens for you? But then I have this feeling that says, Grant, why are you behaving this way? And I actually feel down on myself. And even if I do get there on time, I'm not going to be able to give you my best version of me because I've ruined my morning, right? So the first thing we need to do is understand what those triggers are. We need to make sure that we have an understanding, a list of, well, what are the things that trigger you? So right now, I want you to write down, what are the things that trigger you? So for me, it's traffic. Another one for me is people telling lies. And by the way, as you know, I'm always vulnerable because I want to help you. A lot of people think because I'm a world expert in emotional intelligence that I've got it all together. I'm a work in progress just like everybody else. I don't get up every day and everything goes well. I got to work the strategies that I'm teaching you every single day, right? So, yeah, people tick me off when they tell lies because I make that mean that they don't value me enough to tell the truth. My son dropping his towel on the floor in the bathroom or in his bedroom, that ticks me off because I make it mean that he doesn't value the home that we've given him, right? These meanings that I'm putting on are not logical, but these are things that I just wanted to give you some examples. So you've got to work out, what are those triggers? And then you've got to be able to recognize those triggers before you can go into the strategy I'm about to teach you. So now that you know what the triggers are, you now need to be able to recognize that. What happens physiologically in your body? As I said, in the traffic, I've got stiff hands and arms and back of my neck, right? So what is it for you? You've got to understand that. And then the thing that we want to control here is from this point onwards. We want to be able to control the meaning. We want to control the reaction. And in fact, instead of it being a reaction, we want it to become a response. So now that you have an understanding of this and how it happens, what I want to do to finish off today is leave you with a strategy for behavioral control. I just don't want you to have the information. I want you to have something that's actionable and the implementation to be able to slowly shift. Those things that trigger you, you work on that, right? They're still going to trigger you and they're still going to give you the same sensation. And you've got a pattern of making it mean that. And this is what you normally do. And this is how you normally feel. And so we've got to change the brain wiring. So instead of this triggering you, it doesn't. That's the first thing. And then what you make it mean changes. And therefore you can go to response. All right. So let me take you through this so that you have an understanding. Now, the first thing I want us to think about is how our brain works. And language is so important. So what you're going to do here is stop in the moment, as we've learnt, to go, hey, what's going on? To have that awareness, to have that clarity. And in that, you need to ask yourself questions. And you need to ask yourself what questions, not why questions. Because when you ask why, it takes you down into the emotion. No, we want to get it up into the prefrontal cortex here. We want to get a logical thinking pattern going so that we can bring things back on track. We've got to lead from the front of our brain in this process. All right. Because what happens when you ask what questions, it actually lights up the logical processes in your brain. So the first question that you're going to ask is, what am I feeling? So as I said, you've got to be able to know, what is it that I'm feeling? You've got to recognize, what is the emotion? And we've talked about working on the emotional vocabulary and getting a lot deeper with that rather than just using the handful that we normally use. So what am I feeling? The second thing that does is it makes us pause. So instead of going from here, bang, into that learned behavior, that trigger firing of the reaction, now we've put a pause in there. The second question to ask then is, what am I thinking? So clearly to take those thoughts captive and to understand, what am I thinking? So in my scenario, I'm thinking this and that about you, and you're going to feel this way. And I'm thinking, well, no, hang on a minute, Grant. They don't even know that I'm in traffic, and I mightn't even be late. This is just a story that I'm telling myself. So what am I thinking? So it depends what your scenario is that you're taking yourself through there. What are you thinking? Then, now that you have gone from brain going everywhere to the negative, to narrowing it down and calming the brain down with it focusing on one thing, now you can ask yourself the question, okay, well, what do I want here? What do I want to happen? Well, I want to get to the meeting and I want to have a great meeting. I want to serve the people that I'm going to see. Okay, so that's my outcome. Then the thing I need to ask, and you need to ask, is what could I do to sabotage that right now? So you know the outcome that you want. Well, what could I do or say right now to sabotage it? Well, in my scenario, I could bip the horn and carry on like a pork chop and get myself all upset and whatever, right? And then what strategy or what response will actually get me there? So now you've taken your brain from emotional going on everywhere to focus to logical thinking. Well, what do I actually want here? I want to get there and I want to be feeling good and at my best when I get there. Great. So what could I do to sabotage that? I could bip the horn and carry on like a pork chop. I could then ask myself another question. What could I do differently to get me there in a good mood and ready to give my best? Well, I could actually pick up the phone and go, hey, I'm stuck in traffic right now and I probably won't be late, but I just wanted to give you a heads up and just let you know that I could be 5 or 6 minutes late, depending on if this traffic opens up. And you say, hey, Grant, that's totally okay. Look forward to seeing you. So immediately by shifting the thinking and doing something that is different to what I would normally do in reaction, I've now been able to get myself back on track to what I want to do. So what am I feeling? What am I thinking? What do I want to happen? What could I do to sabotage that? And what will a response give me different to that? What's the outcome? What could I do that's going to get me where I want to go right now? As I said, it does two things. It lights up logical processes and it gives you the pause to be able to think of a strategy to go against the normal trigger, the normal reaction that you would do. So what is it for you? What is it that triggers you? What are the situations, scenarios that you'd like to be able to work on differently? I've given you plenty of space here to work on that. And then, just as we do with every 20-minute transformation, I've got 15 seconds. If you've got any questions you want to ask, jot them down. And then over on this side, what are your biggest insights in this? What did you get out of this rather than just spending 20 minutes with Grant? What are the key things that stuck out for you? And then what's the next step for you to implement that? Is it sit down and write out a list of your triggers, whatever it is for you? And then most importantly, I want you to ponder on when you shift from reaction to response, what impact is that going to have on you, on the people around you, and on the results that you get? So it's been great to spend another 20 minutes with you. For those of you who are watching this live, thank you. For those in the replay, you can get involved as well and leave me some comments wherever you are. And I look forward to seeing you in our next 20-minute transformation together. I'll see you then.